Hello everyone and welcome back to Dearsley. This is part 2 of my turntable build. I have had time to use it over a period of several weeks. It developed a problem with the Lazy Susan ring to do with debris getting in the bearings. I will show you my solution to this, which should cure it, but time will tell. Since part 1 I have added more weathering and detailing. I will show you this also. However, I promised an update to overcome the critical contact problem highlighted in part 1. The solution was very simple. The original contact post provided a pickup area that was too small, making the electrical connection to the turntable track unnecessarily critical. I cut 2 new posts of the original diameter brass tube, then cut collars of a slightly larger diameter to fit over them. I curved some brass strip and soldered them to each collar. I used a small spot of epoxy to fix the collars to the posts, although I could have soldered them. I have now used this arrangement for a number of weeks and I no longer lose track power. With the turntable removed, I replaced the paper printed brick detailing with some harder wearing embossed plastic brickwork. This was weathered with a diluted matte black paint to pick out the detail and grubby up the bricks. These bricks were supplied in A4 sheets and they bend easily around curves. I then cut some individual blocks from 1mm cardboard to line the edge of the well. I've masked off the brickwork of the turntable with some Tamiya masking tape, and I'm going to mix a grey using black and white artist's acrylic to blend in with my baseboard colour these new blocks going around the turntable. I like to mix little bits of the colour as I go. If it's too light, add a bit of dark. It gives a little bit of variety to the colour. Put a bit more extra light in there. Gives a bit of variety. Makes it look more natural, I think. Since my first video, I've done some work on the turntable bed itself. I've done a lot more weathering and toning down of the original paint. This involved on the walkways on both sides is just putting a sort of a sooty darkish wash over the original painting just to tone everything down a little bit. I used the same dark wash over all the grey plaster, again, which has knocked it back to make it much darker and much less sort of eye-catching, as it were. I also felt the original white handrails were too bright, so again I've used some of that wash dabbed over them just to give them a much more weathered look, and I used some rust coloured paint, some sort of reddish brown in lightly washed as well, to add another colour into there to give it a little bit of interest. On a recent visit to the Nene Valley Railway, I took a look at their turntable, and I rather liked the cast iron notice on the side. And although this turntable is not the same as the one I've made, it is quite similar. So I decided to reproduce the plaque and fix it to my turntable. I think it gives it a little bit of more interest, and it certainly gives it more history. With the turntable removed and on my workbench, I'm addressing the problem of a little bit of noisy running, and I put it down to dirt and bits of scenic material, you know, when you're doing your layout, getting in the bearings here, and it needs a couple of times to take them apart and clean them. So what I've decided to do is try it for a while without any bearings at all. So I've removed all the bearings And this rim now just sits inside this, and there is no bearings at all, so there's nothing that will trap bits of grit and stuff from the layout in the bearings themselves. The bearings are here, so I'm going to put it together again and do some tests on it to make sure it's okay. Now what I do notice though, when I tighten this up, I haven't got it tight at the moment, so it looks more severe than it is. But there's a little bit of play now because the bearings aren't holding it in place. So I'm going to put a couple of shims under this end in this position, because that's where the track and the turntable meets the track of the siding. So I need it not to rock about as the locomotive goes on and off the turntable. These are the two shims I've made from white plasticard. The thickness needs to be made by using sort of a couple of layers, 2 or 3 layers, to build up the gap between the ring and the turntable bed. Enough anyway to eliminate that play without causing too much friction when the turntable rotates. One last thing on the control of this turntable is that I'm still aligning it by eye. This task is made much simpler with the Railmaster software because I can control the slow speed so much better. But there may be some scope to add an automatic way of stopping the turntable when it gets to the right position. But I might look at that later. Anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you found it interesting. Please subscribe and I'd be grateful for any comments. See you again.